Many of you know Seva at Ananda Village. She was one of the original members there. So, she knew Swamiji from San Francisco before Ananda existed. She's a very humble woman. She served marvelously. She just turned 80. Amazing. And Swami wanted to call her Shunya, but he didn't feel 45 years ago or 50 years ago that she, and it was sort of a joke between them, that she would understand it in the right way, and that she would just tell people her name was Zero, and that would be that. So he called her Seva, but the ambition was always to become Shunya. So the word has been in my mind forever. And there is a Swami somewhere in India, or there is still or was, whose name was Shunyabai. And in the Western way of thinking about things, it is a bit confusing, which is why it was sort of a sweet joke between Seva, Shunya, and Swami. I was working with Conversations with Yogananda, which is the book that we're studying and talking about on Tuesday nights now. And there was a long entry in there from Master, or Swamiji wrote it actually, about the yugas, about the different ages of enlightenment that exist on this planet and on all planets, and how we are right now in rising Dwapara Yuga, and also how different planets, different solar systems even, have different characteristics. And our particular solar system is very rajasic. Rajasic means active, very, very active. Activity can either be uplifting or downward pulling, but nonetheless it moves around a lot and there's lots of it. And this is a very rajasic planet we're on. We are always doing stuff here. We don't sit around and just be. We're active. And the essential value system of our Rajasic planet in early Dwapara, which is the second yuga, is to accomplish and acquire. And these are actually arbitrary values, but if you live in a certain value system, then you don't really know that it's arbitrary. I was sitting at the table with the Casino family talking to Asia and Alia, who are now grown women. Some of us knew them when they were babies. Some of us knew them before they were babies. Their family is Hawaiian Filipino. And I was just asking them, how has your culture affected you one way or another? That was just bringing up the thought to me, because I think I grew up in a Jewish family, and it didn't affect me in terms of religion, but affected me in so many ways that I thought were just reality, and I didn't know were just arbitrary, just because of where I grew up and how I grew up. And the process of the whole spiritual path is our trying to find our way back from those arbitrary identifications that have just been assumed, back to our point of origin. And our point of origin, interestingly, is still uniquely ours. Master says every atom of creation is dowered with individuality, which is a fascinating thing to think about, that not merely you and me and other created souls who are acquiring karma and then desperately trying to work it out are individual in our trajectory, but every single atom has its own little dance to sing. And in that way, Swamiji talked about originality is not merely to react against what's already been done. People try to be original by doing something the opposite. We see a great deal of that in the art world, for example, right now. Art used to be beautiful, so let's be original by making art ugly. Art used to be uplifting, so let's be original by making it degrading. But there's nothing really original or even creative about that. It's entirely reactive. So original really means to come to your own point of origin. And then, no matter what you do, in fact, it's interesting as a person who works a lot with words and tries to express myself in a way that is hopefully at least not boring and hopefully interesting. One tries sometimes too hard to be clever, reacting against what appears to be dull. But in fact, it's not a question of being clever, it's being absolutely original, which is to say or do or paint or live or think what is really your own and not merely thoughtlessly assumed from around you. So as we progress on this journey toward ever greater self-realization, it's directional, as Swami says. We don't just start from nothing and become fully enlightened. I remember in the very early days of my spiritual life, I read that there are many different ways that enlightenment comes, and one of them was in your sleep. You go to bed one way and you wake up enlightened, and I didn't know if I got a vote, but that was the one that I voted for. I thought that would be the nicest one, to just suddenly have it be assigned to you. But no such luck. But on this journey that we're on, we move step by step. And the beginning of it is to at least separate ourselves from the arbitrary and decide that was arbitrarily imposed on us, not by an accident of birth, but just because it's the influences we chose to surround ourselves with. When Swamiji wrote his autobiography, and he's describing his own pioneer ancestors and the character of his parents and grandparents, he says, "I came into this world fully myself." And he was speaking of himself, but actually it's true for all of us. I came into this world fully myself. He said, I'm describing all of this to tell you the influences I chose to associate myself with, which I think is a very interesting way to put it, because of course there's reason for all of that too. The influences I chose to associate myself with is not the same as me. It's not the same as myself. And as we move on the spiritual path toward a more inward orientation toward life, I mean, this is our meditation and our yoga practice. Everything pulls us into our spine. And the reason that we're doing that is so we will get closer and closer to our origin point. Because the closer we are to our origin point is to say, the closer we come to God. And even if we don't know at first that we're coming closer to God, we're just trying to be more and more of who I was meant to be, or what my mission is, or however people think about it. But my mission is that same active accomplishment attitude. Our origin point is very different than that. So we become more and more comfortable, really, and more spontaneous in just being able to respond according to what is absolutely authentic for us. Sometimes it's a little startling. Sometimes it's quite close to the influences we chose to associate ourselves with. Merely to rebel is not to be original. But there's a whole other dimension to this, which is what the word shunya is all about, which is once we have sufficiently, I would say, declared and discovered our independence from external influences, then there's an almost limitless scope within us of how deeply we can get engaged with internal influences and ultimately with infinite influences. And I remember how many times Swamiji has talked about relaxation as the key to deep meditation, and relaxation as the key really to the whole spiritual life. And being very influenced by activity and accomplishment myself, I've always been intrigued by that, because Swamiji was the most active person that I've ever known, in the sense of always engaged creatively and energetically, and even when he appeared to be in silence and stillness, his consciousness was still influencing in so many powerful ways. But what we're really relaxing from is this tremendous effort that we're always putting out to maintain our separate individuality. And it's so instinctive that we don't even know it. We've been tensed for so long that we just think of it as normal, just like that. But there is this point at which we become so comfortable with the inner world that we don't even have to strive to be in it anymore. We can even relax back from that. And recently I was just meditating on these ideas, and I had visited with Seva soon after her 80th birthday, and we were laughing together about shunya and all those years ago, and how difficult it was to get our minds around it. But the idea stuck in my mind. To be both zero and to be infinite. You see, that's the paradox of that word. Because infinite is about as immense, it is. It's the end of immensity, the beginning of immensity. And zero is nothing at all. So when we suddenly realize that this escape that we're seeking, and all of us are seeking escape, but we're not seeking escape in unconsciousness. We're all seeking to escape from the anguishing monotony, the paralyzing fear, the endless tension of having to hold ourselves as separate individuals. And little by little, I think that voice of God whispers in our ear. And he says very quietly, the word I've heard always is surrender. But what we're surrendering, we think when we surrender that somehow we're giving up. But what we're actually surrendering is the tension of staying separate. Just give that fight up, that particular fight, and just realize that we can just rest in God. Swamiji was so intense on a certain level, and so utterly relaxed at all times. I've thought about that quality of his. In circumstances, it was shown up by the fact that Master had told him to eat 3 meals a day. He'd stopped eating dinner so that he could meditate longer when he was a young monk, and Master told him no. He said, you have to eat 3 times a day, even if you only eat a little bit. And Swami was 23 at the time, and Master said, you're young now, it won't make any difference, but it will matter. You need to do this. So Swami always ate 3 meals a day. And he always sat down to eat, and he always placed everything in front of him very carefully, and he always ate very politely, no matter how late we were, no matter how hurried we were, no matter where we had to go. He never allowed circumstances to push him out of his center. And even if he was only going to eat something small and we only had 30 seconds for him to do it, he put his whole self where he needed to be. He relaxed completely, did what he needed to do, and then moved to the next reality. And I was thinking about that with shunya, in the sense that it doesn't happen any faster for us tightening up and worrying about it, does it? And in fact, where it really happens to us is when we just surrender that fight. Surrender that fight and let the divine be part of us. Everything about Thanksgiving that Shanti was talking about earlier, about appreciating and seeing the world differently, all of that comes when we cease being separate from it, isn't it? That's when we look at it and everything is right where it should be. It's that always pulling ourselves apart from it that causes us to think it's not what it's supposed to be. So giving ourselves into that reality. Swamiji said once, just the simple phrase, his advice was, rest in the heart. And the heart is the point where the likes and dislikes exist. This is where ego takes hold. Because once we have our happiness dependent on certain conditions, That's what holds us apart, isn't it? And so that advice, so simple, rest in the heart, which I've had in my thoughts for decades. I was thinking about, well, that's what shunya is when instead of pulling this way and resisting that way, keeping up that unbearable tension to be separate, we just rest in the heart. Rest in that experience of love, and then everything else follows. Gratitude is an attitude that we sometimes try to affirm. With Swamiji through the years, I began to realize that what I thought was a good attitude wasn't a good attitude on his part at all. It was his consciousness. It was just the way the world looked to him. He was incapable of perceiving it in any other way. And that's where we want to move. Move from affirming a good attitude to simply perceiving a new reality. Rest in that infinite love. Become one with that infinite love and be shunya, be a zero. Be infinite in nothing. And that's where our freedom lies. God bless you.